The US has hit Iran hard. Strikes, leadership targeted, infrastructure damaged. On the surface, it looks like dominance. But what if that's not how this war is decided? Because wars aren't really won by strikes, they are won by outcomes. And if you look at why the US got into this in the first place, regime change, nuclear rollback, regional stability, energy control, the question becomes, are those goals getting closer or further away? Take regime change, for example. For years, the pressure inside Iran was internal. People versus the system, there were fractures, debate, dissent, but the moment this turns into Iran versus an external force, something shifts. Those internal divisions, they compress because now it's not about the regime anymore. It's about the country. And history shows us this again and again. Countries with deep civilizations, long identities, they don't fragment under external pressure. They consolidate. So instead of weakening the system, US may have just strengthened the idea of it. And even structurally, Iran isn't built around one person. Remove one leader, there's another, and probably another. You're not fighting a face, you're fighting a system that replaces faces. Now layer that with something else, legitimacy. The US has often framed its interventions as stabilizing forces, bringing order, sometimes even democracy, freedom. But when bombs are falling on the same cities you claim to stabilize, that argument starts to get complicated because perception matters in war, almost as much as power. And that brings us to something even more interesting, the nuclear question. Yes, the program may have been hit, delayed, disrupted, but think about the incentive now that Iran has. If you are Iran, what do you learn from all of this? That not having a strong deterrent makes you vulnerable. So instead of stopping the nuclear program, US may have just given it the urgency that Iran needed. Sometimes pressure doesn't stop a system, it accelerates it. Now zoom out further. Let's understand the economics of this, because wars look very different on a map and very different in real life. On a map, it's strategy. On the ground, it's cost. Oil spikes, supply chains tighten, routes like Hormuz become unstable and vulnerable, and suddenly, this isn't just a war zone problem, it's a global one. Fuel prices rise, transports gets expensive, everyday life quietly becomes costlier. And here's the thing about war economics. No matter how far the battlefield is, the impact always finds its way home, because wars are expensive, not just in money, but in momentum. Quick wars can impose outcomes, but long wars, they drain systems. And this doesn't stop at economics, it spills into credibility. Because every war sends a message, not just to the opponent, but to everyone else watching. And if future negotiations start to feel like just a pause before the next strike, then diplomacy itself starts to weaken. And that's a long-term cost. So when you put all of this together, regime stability, nuclear urgency, economic disruption, global perception, you start to see a very different picture. Yes, the US has power, that hasn't changed, but wars are not decided by power alone. They are decided by whether your objectives become easier to achieve or harder. And right now, they may actually be getting harder for the United States, not because nothing worked, but because what worked may have changed the game itself. I am Abhijit, and you are watching DN Explained.